Okay, we begin this third part with this excerpt from The Truth About New Calvinism, November 13th, 1982. Ernest Reisinger and others start their own association. In fact, Ernest Reisinger left the Presbyterian Church to become a Southern Baptist. In 1982, as you can see here, there was a meeting in Euless, Texas, and Reisinger's heir apparent, Tom Askell, was present at that meeting. And I do think this meeting was the meeting that began the movement to take over the SBC with the centrality of the objective gospel completely outside of us. If you look on our chart, we'll refer back to it. You see the line that goes down to Ernest Reisinger, beginning the Founders Ministry, and that is, of course, what has spread this doctrine directly into the Southern Baptist Convention. Okay, so the big question is it the same doctrine? Did Askell change doctrine, or did he, when he took over Reisinger's old church and took over running Founders Ministry, which was begun by Reisinger for the sole purpose of spreading this doctrine into the SBC, did the doctrine change, or did Tom Askell carry the same doctrine forward? Well, I have the citation here from The Truth About New Calvinism, and if we go to the website of the Grace Baptist Church, which was Reisinger's old site, under core distinctives, this is what we read. The gospel is not an add-on to our services or merely an entry point to Christianity. The gospel is the message we preach and the means by which we persevere in the faith. We focus on applying the gospel to every area of living, including marriage, family, work, personal sanctification, evangelism, and Christian community. Again, Tullian Tigvidian could have said that. John Piper could have said that. It's the exact same doctrine. Then we have the little reminder here, the quote from the article that John Armstrong wrote about the article about New Calvinism that was in Time magazine. Let me remind you that he said, though he didn't say Ernest Reisinger's name specifically, we know who that's who he was referring to. And Armstrong says himself that this is the purpose and the reason that Ernest Reisinger brought this doctrine into the SBC, and that it was a gospel recovery operation. It's right there. Not only that, we've seen clearly where Armstrong got his theology in regard to that, and also believed it was a recovery doctrine. And also, I read from page here 151, The Truth About New Calvinism. This is a statement from volume 16, article 13 of Present Truth, and this is from the Australian Forum, and I quote, "Unless sanctification is rooted in justification and constantly returns to justification, unless sanctification is rooted in justification and constantly returns to justification, it cannot escape the poisonous miasma of subjectivism, moralism, or Phariseeism. Since the life of holiness is fueled and fired by justification by faith, sanctification must constantly return to justification. Otherwise, the Christian cannot possibly escape arriving at a new self-righteousness. We cannot reach a point in sanctification where our fellowship with God does not rest completely on forgiveness of sins. Christian existence is gospel existence. Sanctification, listen, sanctification is justification in action. Okay? Okay, this is an excerpt, a couple pages from the Truth About New Calvinism, and basically it's excerpts from a piece that a Martin L. Carey wrote, and he was a first-hand witness to the awakening movement that paved the way for the Australian Forum. And he cites specifically in his article that what really launched the awakening movement was Robert Brinsmead's interpretation of Romans 8:30, that he felt that he discovered from studying Reformed theology. And his conclusion was that Luther and the other reformers interpreted Romans 8:30 is not having sanctification in that verse because, and I'm paraphrasing here, kind of putting it in my own words, that justification and sanctification were the same thing. I'm going to read a few excerpts of it, and this is what Carey testifies to. He says in 1971, Brinsmead scheduled a flurry of summer institutes to bring us his latest emphasis. There was more excitement than usual. The latest round of tapes had prepared us for something big. Bob had been studying the Reformation doctrine of justification by faith, comparing it to Roman Catholic doctrines. Reading Luther, he saw that justification is not just a means to the end of perfect sanctification. When we are justified by faith, not only does God impute Christ's righteousness to us, but we also possess Christ himself. All his righteousness and all his perfection, eternity, flows from that fact. And Brinsmead says that he got that from Luther. Carey continues, and those whom he predestined he also called, and those whom he called he also justified, and those whom he justified he also glorified, citing Romans 8:30. Carey goes forward, the same ones he justified he also glorified. We began to realize we had inserted extra steps into Paul's chain of salvation. Sanctification and a final atonement brought about by blotting out sins. Those added steps, in fact, were the heart of the awakening message, but we had ignored the heart of the real gospel, being justified by faith. We rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Our righteousness is in heaven, said Brinsmead. The righteousness by which we become just in God's sight remain just in his sight, and will one day be sealed as forever just in his sight, is an outside righteousness. It is not on earth, but only in heaven, only in Jesus Christ. True sanctification looks away from self and flows from the finished objective work of Christ. For many Christians, the glory of the crucified Christ is not their focus. Instead, they seek internal experiences that eclipse the cross. Sound familiar? The awakening rightly opposed the subjective human-centered emphasis found among some groups within Christianity. Wrongly, they reacted with a cerebral, spiritless gospel. Brinsmead strongly opposed the charismatic movement's emphasis on experience as a return to the theology of Rome. However, going to another extreme, Present Truth magazine decried, and I quote, the false gospel of the new birth, and offered a new birth that was merely a corporate, objective blessing, not an individual experience. And in fact, the Forum, as many new Calvinists today, they do it kind of in a backdoor, nuanced way, but they do deny the new birth, and that's where all of this stuff about the total depravity of the saints comes from. It comes from the Forum and their denial of our new creaturehood. I will say this, Ernest Reisinger is very nuanced in the way he was able to communicate this doctrine without detection. But I have a citation here from the book. He says the Lordship teaching plus the order of salvation as follows: 1, regeneration; 2, faith, which includes repentance, justification; 4, sanctification, parentheses, distinct from but always joined to justification. Alright? Always joined to justification. Okay, and then we have this piece that Ernest Reisinger wrote for Founders Ministry regarding none other than Romans 8:30. And what he says here is that we're kept by the power of God through faith. And then these verses that he cites have nothing to do with making that point. But I will say this, in Timothy F. Kaufman's excellent piece on this issue, and the January-March 2012 issue of the Trinity Review, he says this, and I'm paraphrasing here, and says it well, but if justification and sanctification are not totally separate, anything we do in sanctification is work salvation to maintain our salvation, even if it's nothing. Just a fabulous point, and a job well done by him in that article. But yes, if the two are not totally separate, anything that we do in sanctification points back to justification. So even doing nothing is doing something so that we so that we're kept. Okay, we're out of time. I have supplied these last two clips that you can pause at your convenience, that are a string of quotations by contemporary New Calvinists and those from the Forum. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful God-honoring day.